It's always the worst. Not so many, at least.
Madam Secretary.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're off to a good start. Welcome, everybody. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lars Petersen. I'm the CEO of Vineyard Wind. And I thank you all for coming out at what has turned out to be a beautiful sunny Thursday. I must admit that when we picked this date, I was just worried about the weather, but the speaker assured me that he had everything covered. So it's down to him. And it's also a Thursday that shows us why we're actually building offshore wind in this part of the country, in the strong winds coming in, and it's even better offshore. So on behalf of the shareholders of Vineyard Wind, Avangrid Renewables, and Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, on behalf of the Vineyard Wind 1 project team, my management team, and myself, welcome to the groundbreaking of Vineyard Wind 1. So before I begin my own remarks, I just want to recognize a few of the very distinguished guests we have here today. We are very honored that Secretary Haaland is here. Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Secretary Theoharides. We have Senators here. Senate President Spilka would have loved to be here. Speaker Mariano. Matt Levesque, Barnstable Town Council President. Frank Calhoun, President of the Massachusetts Building Trades Council. Andy Gottlieb, Executive Director of the Association to Preserve Cape Cod. And from our shareholders, we have Dennis Ariola, the CEO of Avangrid. We have Xavier Viteri, the Global Head of Renewables for Iberdrola. And Bill White, the Chairman of the Vineyard Wind 1 Board. From CIP, we have Christian Skakkebæk, Co-founder and Senior Partner. Henrik Tordrup. Henrik, he's down there. And members of the Massachusetts Legislature, representatives of the federal delegation, representatives of our suppliers, friends of the project, and not least the amazing Vineyard Wind 1 team in the back. So if you had asked me 3 years ago, and I'm not sure you would have asked me, but if you would have asked me 3 years ago what I would be doing on Cape Cod in November of 2021, I would probably have said that I would go down here to celebrate the inauguration of Vineyard Wind 1 after we would have commissioned and installed the last turbine offshore. It didn't play out exactly the way I thought back in 2018 when we were trying to put the pieces of the project together. I think we all know the reasons why and some of the challenges that we have faced in getting to this point. And therefore, it feels even more special to be able to celebrate the groundbreaking. And Covell's Beach is actually a perfect location. This is where the power will come ashore after having traveled 35 miles through the ocean, and then it will go a straight shot through the roads up to 8 miles from here, where it will connect and deliver clean, affordable power to the New England grid. And it took a large team to get to this point. I want to thank Secretary Haaland. I want to thank the very dedicated staff at BOEM. And I want to thank the entire Biden administration for their support for offshore wind in general and for this project in particular. It was their determination to conclude the permitting process for this project that allows us to be here today, so thank you very much. I want to thank the members of the Massachusetts legislature who had a bold vision many years ago that offshore wind should be part of the future and creating the first mandate for offshore wind in the country. I want to thank Governor Baker for signing the 83 legislation back in 2016, enabling us to kick off the procurement of power at this scale, and the Massachusetts federal delegation who have been great supporters for offshore wind in general and not least for this project in particular. Also the town of Barnstable and the council members who, together with us, crafted a really good host community benefit agreement that benefits us and the residents of the town. And I also want to thank everybody else who has weighed in over the years. We could not have done it without you. So when we got awarded the PPA back in 2018, we knew this project was novel. It would be inherently difficult, and we know there would be a lot of unanswered questions as the first large-scale project in the country. And we sat down and we challenged ourselves, saying that we wanted to do and create an example for everybody how you develop large-scale infrastructure, but also being committed, being local, and being engaged. We've tried to set a good example. We hope others can learn and build and improve upon that, but we also think we succeeded in that goal. I was doing a little bit of statistics with my team, and it's actually quite staggering, but for those of you who don't know, we have received more than 30,000, so that's 30 public comments. We have held more than 660 public meetings. There was a number of hundreds and hundreds of hours of public comments we have been through. We have been reviewed by more than 24 state, local, and federal agencies. And all of it has been built on extensive community engagement, strong commitments to not only build the project in a responsible way, but also to do so in cooperation with our local partners and create local union jobs. So, thank you. And let me just mention a few of them, and you can imagine that if I wanted to mention all of them, we would be here for a very long time, but a few of the agreements we are very proud of. Just a short time ago, we were in New Bedford celebrating the signing of the first U.S. offshore wind PLA. And today, as we celebrate the groundbreaking right here at Covell's Beach, we are right from day one working with local union labor from day one of this project. And this And as I mentioned earlier, this specific part of the project, the landfall, the interconnection, it also speaks to the collaborative approach we have taken where the project is going to be located. So we have worked with officials from Barnstable and managed to come up with a plan where we will save the town millions of dollars as they move forward with a very important project for them and the entire Cape Cod. So improving on their sewers while we put our cables into the ground, and we're really proud of solutions like that. That is a true win-win. So thank you for that. And when you work a couple of years on a project like this, you also get to create a few amazing stories, and some of those stories I will always carry with me. And maybe not all of you can follow all the details of these stories, but they are great stories, so let me do a few of them. So we were not here unless people took a trip to Denmark. I think the Massachusetts legislators and others did that in 2016. And Speaker Mariano, he tells this story much, much better than I do, so if you have the time, please ask him. But it involved an old downtown historic hotel in Copenhagen with, well, I think what the speaker would term inadequate elevator infrastructure and a very heavy suitcase that caused him to blow out his knee. And I think that shows the level of dedication that you have for offshore wind, so thank you for that. And another favorite story of mine is the day after the award, so that's 24th of May 2018 for anyone who keeps track like I do. I received a text from Christian Scorsoni. Many of you here in the room know Christian. Christian had met with the governor And the text was a picture of the two of them with thumbs up facing me, and then there was a byline. It says, Gov says congratulations, and don't screw it up. And that was not exactly what he said, but three of the four words were accurately represented here. And those words then became the unofficial motto of the project. We have them on T-shirts. They were handed out at the board meeting. So thank you for that. And I think we made it here without screwing it up. So thank you for that. And then maybe the last story, and I know Dusty is looking anxiously at the watch here. Another moving story for me was actually, and one of the reasons why we do these projects, not only for clean energy, but also to create the economic development and the opportunities for others to have good, well-paying jobs. When we were in New Bedford, one of the tradesmen, Josh, came up to the podium and talked about how this project and this industry would give him an opportunity to move into a lifelong career that would provide for him and his family, and how proud he was to talk about this with his 5-year-old son. That's really one of the stories I really want to carry with me. So the list of stories and achievements is very long, and it's way too long for a day like today. But for those I mentioned, and for all of those I could not mention, and it's quite a few, thank you for your support and cooperation. You're all part of Team Vineyard. And as I had to remember my team during some of the darker days of this project over the years, there will only ever be one team that builds the first large-scale offshore wind project in the US, and it is this team. Thank you, and thank you for being with us. So with this, I want to introduce the next speaker. And before I hand over the podium, so Secretary Theoharides has been key in getting this project over the finish line. I've always appreciated your hard work and dedication, and your team's hard work of dedication. I'm happy to see quite a few of them here today. And you have always guided us and challenged us when it was needed. You have supported us when it was needed, and you have found solutions where solutions needed to be found quickly. So thank you for that. We wouldn't have been here without you. So without further ado, Secretary Theoharides.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. It's great to be in a room with so many friends who have worked so hard across the years to get this project to where it is today. A special shout out to the Vineyard team. Going first is terrific. It isn't always easy, as my boss would say about this project, and we've certainly seen darker times when believing in this and doing the work was a lot harder than signing up for this in the first place. As we move towards this net zero future here in the Commonwealth, it is people who are gathered in this room, problem solvers at local levels, at the state level, at the federal level, who are going to help us create this climate-friendly future, who are going to build the clean energy jobs, protect our land, and create a more equitable, just green energy transition. And so I just am so grateful to all of you in the legislature, at the federal level, and in state and local government for all the continued work and support you've given, not just to this project, but to a whole slew of strategies we need to implement to see our climate goals come into fruition and to create this new economy around these good, well-paying jobs. It is a absolutely momentous day today. We need a lot more of these days to get to our 2050 goals and to move forward. But the good thing is, with each of these projects and with all of the work we're doing, we are building a clean energy economy here in Massachusetts and in the United States that will create jobs and continue to work on these terrific solutions. So without further ado, I'm going to be emceeing the program, so you'll be hearing a lot from me going forward today. But a lot of people deserve significant credit on this project, and we wouldn't be here today without leadership from the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management and the Department of Interior, which after years of delays and really some nail-biting moments as we work through this, put this project on a path to complete the federal permitting process, and then expeditiously granted the project a favorable record of decision back this spring. They've also established a clear permitting process and a timeline, and it's that kind of signal that the industry and the states all need as we pursue and chase these clean energy goals. So we are so grateful to Interior Secretary Haaland, who has made offshore wind a priority and this project a priority on the path to construction, and established the administration's 30 gigawatt by 2030 target and the exploration of new lease areas throughout the United States. And I think the Secretary's portfolio is one of the most challenging because she has to balance these net zero goals and the clean energy future with the protection and stewardship of our natural resources in an equitable manner going forward. It's also my honor to welcome her as a completer of the Boston Marathon. So. So thank you, Secretary.
Thank you so much. Just don't ask me what my time was, although I'm sure you can look it up and, and find that out. But my goodness, the energy in this room. Love it. Love it so much. So it's so great to be here with all of you today. And yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the beautiful sunny day. We're so grateful that we can celebrate and, see the ocean, the Creator's creation right there, just waiting for us to protect it. So it's thrilling to think that right here where we're standing is where the very first cable will connect the nation's first commercial-scale offshore wind facility to the mainland and eventually to the U.S. power grid. Yes. I recently returned from COP26 in Glasgow, where we saw the significant global progress that other nations are making when it comes to offshore wind development. And as a relatively young clean energy program here in the United States, we have the benefit of learning from some of the efforts that have been around for decades to glean lessons learned and best practices to set us up for success and quicker success, I think. Those lessons are evident in the progress with Vineyard Wind 1, which represents an enormous leap forward in the nation's offshore wind production. To put it in perspective, we currently have 7 turbines offshore. When completed, Vineyard Wind 1 will boast 62 turbines, provide enough power for 400,000 homes and businesses, and create hundreds of good-paying union jobs. And the best part of all that is we're just getting started. Since his first week in office, tackling the climate crisis has been a centerpiece of President Biden's Build Back Better agenda. To accomplish the goals he set out, the United States is making giant leaps in building a clean energy future. It's a solution that can create robust and sustainable economies that lift up communities while also ensuring future generations have a livable planet. In March of this year, I joined several of my colleagues across the cabinet to set a bold target to deploy 30 gigawatts of offshore wind energy by 2030. This could create nearly 80,000 good-paying union jobs in the United States. We know these goals are ambitious, but they're necessary, but more importantly, they're realistic. And I think Vineyard Wind proves that. Less than a year since we started, we're well on our way to meeting those goals. To facilitate our transition to clean energy for 2030 and contribute to the U.S. reaching net zero emissions by 2050, Interior recently announced an ambitious offshore wind leasing strategy that includes holding up to 7 new offshore lease sales across the United States by 2025. This will help us instill confidence in the domestic supply chain, and we're already seeing significant investment from our efforts. In fact, a recent report indicates that the United States' growing offshore wind industry presents a $109 billion opportunity in revenue to businesses in the supply chain over the next decade. Having a clear path forward can also help spark economic growth and create opportunities for communities across the country. The Vineyard Wind 1 project is a prime example, with significant investments in Massachusetts, offshore wind supply chain, and developing a local labor force for the offshore wind energy industry. This multi-year leasing roadmap demonstrates our commitment to responsibly accelerate our nation's transition to a clean energy future. And as with everything we do, the department will continue to work with our partners, stakeholders, Indian tribes, and ocean users to avoid and reduce potential impacts as much as we can. We cannot delay. The climate crisis demands our immediate attention. And that's why the bipartisan infrastructure law, which President Biden signed earlier this week, is such an historic and monumental moment in this nation's efforts to protect our lands and waters. It recognizes that in order to keep our planet livable for future generations, we must get to net zero economy and make robust investments in sustainable economies, clean energy, and climate resilience. I know this law will make a huge difference in the day-to-day lives of millions of people across this country who deserve to live with clean air, drinkable water, and fertile soil. As we break ground on the Vineyard Wind 1 project, I'm honored to take this crucial and symbolic step forward with other leaders here today. And before I close, I do want to acknowledge the hard work that BOEM has done in this effort. Amanda Lefton and her team have done an amazing job, and we're all so grateful. I have the best team at the Department of the Interior. They make me look good every single day. And so I just want to make that known that it's not me. It's an entire team working together to make sure that we can move President Biden's goals and mission forward. And I'm very grateful for that. So working together, we can take the bold actions required to address climate change and help create a cleaner, more equitable energy future for our nation, for our children, and for the world. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Secretary, and thank you so much for honoring us with your presence today, and to your team. Amanda Lefton moved this project forward on her first day in the job, which is quite an accomplishment. Our next speaker is, I'm very pleased to introduce Governor Baker, who has been a leader on climate and clean energy issues since before my time was involved with this project. I only got involved right when it got interesting in 2019. Really interesting. It was interesting. It was interesting before that, but a little bit less interesting. But back in 2016, the governor signed legislation working with the legislature that unlocked this new resource for us. And since that time has committed to a net zero clean energy transition and has done significant work across the Commonwealth to promote clean energy and to build climate resiliency. So without further ado, Governor.
So, first of all, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. This is a team sport. It has been proven to be a team sport since the beginning, and I really love being able to look here and out there and see a really big team that's ready to play this very important, significant, and long game that we're all involved in. When Lieutenant Governor Polito and I took office back in 2015, I talked about this issue in my first State of the State and said that it was critically important that we pursue what I called a combo platter at the time to deal with our clean energy and resiliency issues and climate issues as we went forward. And And it's really wonderful to see so many of the folks in the legislature here today who played such a big role in getting that legislation done in 2016. I did not anticipate at the time, however, that Karen and I would have to run for re-election to actually be around by the time we broke ground on the connector down here on the Cape. And I think some of that was a function of what the Secretary referred to as being first. But the important thing about this particular project in terms of being first is when we got the bill passed, put together the RFP, put the RFP out, and announced that Vineyard Wind had won it with a very affordable price that shocked everybody up and down the coast. That was when we knew we were not going to be the only offshore wind project. We were going to be the first, because a whole bunch of people got very excited about the changing nature of technology and what was possible with deepwater wind procurements. And that is why we now have gigabyte galore all the way up and down the eastern seaboard, with states, industries, businesses, and investors interested, deeply interested, in jumping in with both feet into the deep end of the pool here to make this happen across the eastern seaboard. And I got to tell you that Vineyard Wind, I just have to say to you folks how much we appreciate your perseverance, your creativity, and your appreciation for what it meant to be first. I don't think it should have taken this long. I really don't. And I hate to say that again. I already said it once. But if we truly want to get where we need to go as fast as we need to go on this stuff, we have got to figure out some way to move a little faster. And I really do hope and I really do hope that one of the lessons we've all learned from this particular exercise with the first is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time as this process moves forward. And I really do appreciate, Madam Secretary, the work that was done by your team and your administration to get us to this point. But as I sit here and think about the fact that we have a second 800 megawatt project that's currently underway, and we also have an outstanding bid for a third 1,600 megawatt project that was authorized by the legislature a couple of years ago. And when I think about the fact that we have a $700 million clean energy innovation fund that's currently pending before the legislature, there is a lot to be done here. This is a great day, and I'm super psyched that we're first, okay? But I want us to be first, fifth, 25th, 42nd, and 50th over the course of the next 30 years, because that's the way. You know, we get 400,000 homes out of this and an annual reduction of 1.6 million tons of carbon emissions, okay? We need so many more of these, and we all, collectively, this team, need to be aggressive about making sure that we keep our, I hate to use the analogy, but it fits, our foot on the pedal as we move forward here to pursue what is, in fact, a tremendous opportunity to do two very important things. Provide our children and our grandchildren with an environment that's livable and balanced and appropriate, and secondly, to create great jobs for people going forward. So thank you very much. This is a great day.
Thank you, Governor. And not that any of us at EEA or our Department of Energy Resources are counting, but to get to our 2050 goals, we need to do 1.5 of these projects every year starting in 2030. So faster is very important. We are also so glad to be joined today by Lieutenant Governor Polito, who is a true champion for every single community in Massachusetts. And we've talked a lot about the workforce opportunities and all the jobs that will be created by this project, by other projects to come. But one of the particular things I wanted to mention to the Vineyard team about the Lieutenant Governor is that she now has been trained in how to go up and service a turbine. during STEM week. And so if you are looking for someone who can climb a turbine and fix all of the components when you get up there, look no further. So without further introduction, Lieutenant Governor.
That was great introduction. I highly recommend the training for all of you. It's really terrific. I'm not sure, Mr. Speaker, if you want to go that far up with that knee there, but I'm sitting next to Secretary Haaland. It's been a real pleasure to do so. She just put on her third layer. Okay, now this is a balmy, sunny, very warm November day here, and we're ready to shed the layers. But it's great to be with all of you for this beautiful moment. I have walked this beach many times. My family lives in this area. Little did I know on those walks that this very special, beautiful, somewhat seasonal spot would be the home of the first cable to connect wind generated 35 miles off of this beach to hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses in our community and our Commonwealth. This is an incredible and an amazing moment, not only for all of us, but for someone who is of this community and of this Commonwealth. Let me start by saying just 2 points I want to make. First and foremost, a profound and huge thank you to the community and town of Barnstable. For sharing this amazing responsibility to see this through. This was a very complicated, heated, intense process for this community to work through, and they got to yes. Finding a place where this was possible. And but for their tenacious seriousness, thoughtfulness, and willingness to listen, learn, and address the issues of the people of this community, we would not be here today. So thank you. I also want to credit how smart they are, not only in negotiating the agreement with you, but also the lines of transmission that will be under the roadways of this community will be nestled in a trench with sewer lines that will also be updated and expanded in this community, which is also an environmental benefit to Barnstable. Congratulations. While we celebrate this special spot, it's forever changed. We also celebrate the many people who will stand up wind here off the shores of our Commonwealth. Starting with our labor unions, we are so grateful for your willingness and abilities to stand up wind here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Hundreds of you. And not only are we committed to a clean energy future, we are committed to all of you to build the workforce needed, not only to construct wind onshore, offshore, but also to service and maintain it for decades and decades and decades to come. That is an enormous undertaking here for us in Massachusetts, and we couldn't do that without our academic partners that recently signed an MOU to tailor the programs needed, programs that are being set up for the very first time for jobs that are now developing and growing that never existed before. From Mass Maritime to Bridgewater State to UMass Dartmouth to our 3 community colleges, Cape Cod, Massasoit, and Bristol. We thank all of you for working together and doing something unique in each institution to develop the skills, the credentials, and the abilities to service wind for many, many years. This is an amazing moment. It's a huge opportunity, not only for this community, this Commonwealth, and this country, but for our future. I am very grateful for all of you for working so hard, and I feel very honored to be a part of this very special celebration. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. Before we move on to our next speaker, I just did want to take a moment to recognize some folks who aren't with us today but are very much here in spirit. Senator Ed Markey, who's represented by his staffer Hannah Benson today, Senator Elizabeth Warren, who's represented by Jim Cantwell, and Congressman Bill Keating, who's represented by Andrew Nelson.
You got the Senator Hayes backwards.
Oh, you're right. Well, I didn't. Someone who wrote these cards did. Sorry, Christian. As well as Congressman Jake Auchincloss's staff, who's here, Jenna Massoud. But I know this delegation has worked so hard both to ensure that this project got done, that the next project will get done, and on the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was just recently signed into law this week, which is such an important piece of the go forward for climate change, for resiliency, and for actually making sure that this grid can stand up to all of the new resources that are being connected into it. But I do have the honor today of introducing a real champion of offshore wind in our Speaker of the House. And it is a great pleasure to be able to work with someone who really gets the opportunity here and is looking forward to seeing it built up and down our coast. And so it is my pleasure to introduce Speaker Mariano to the podium and to thank him for all of the work he's done to support this industry.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. It is really an honor for me to be here because I did make a major sacrifice on that trip. I had a knee replacement. They put me on the 4th floor with no elevator. And I had a huge suitcase because we were changing countries. I had to carry it up in a hurry because we had a dinner at the ambassador's house 15 minutes after my arrival. So I was running up the stairs and I heard a pop, and that was pretty much the end of my walking on that trip. But it did leave me with the opportunity to sit in the boat and look at windmills. And it was a great opportunity because it really imprinted on my understanding the benefit of what we were watching and what it was doing for the country. And I just want to thank Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito and all the local officials who have joined together to make this happen. Because it's awful easy to sit and write legislation, but you folks have to make it work in your neighborhood, make it work for you and your neighbors. And that's the challenge. But this marks a new chapter, not only for Massachusetts' clean energy future, but for that of the entire country. While this project is the result of the state clean energy legislation, we are able now to break ground because we have a presidential administration that has prioritized and fully embraced the promise of offshore wind. I think we are all impressed by the President's commitment and goal setting for offshore wind. And we know that the waters off Massachusetts, with our high winds and shallow waters, has the potential to deliver at least 1/3 of all the President's goal. And we're ready, Governor, to authorize changes in the procurement legislation. I just couldn't resist that. And we have the chairman of the committee right here, Jeff Roy, who's working on this legislation. And in all seriousness, I think we've all come to recognize what a success, a potential for success this industry has. And we are very, very committed to making sure that we continue to make it easier for these projects to happen. We are sort of wowed by the schedule that the secretary just set, 1.5 of these a year for, I don't know, we better get going, Jeff. We better get going.
I'm right behind you.
Thank you. Well, you always have been. Except for the time you're in the boat, we were a little seasick. I digress. Oh, and let me explain the Secretary's comments. She thanked me for the sun. And I think everyone in the offshore wind industry has to thank me, because wherever I go to one of these events, it's always beautiful. If I'm out on the boat, it's balmy and calm. And here today, I brought 70-degree temperatures in November. But I'm here to celebrate the progress that Vineyard Wind has made. Truly an amazing story. When I first found out about this whole industry, I was just told, we have to keep the cost per kilowatt hour on a 5% increase. And then when we saw the way the bids came in, we said, this is extremely doable. So congratulations to Vineyard Wind, and congratulations to the town here, because I think this is a marriage that's made in heaven and is going to be the first step in a very, very successful journey that the state of Massachusetts is going to take. Thank you.
Well, we're here today in Barnstable, which has the very good fortune of being represented by State Senator Julian Cyr, who has been a strong leader in the Senate on energy and environmental issues, and I know is very proud to represent these communities in the Cape and Islands, and is also bringing us well wishes from Senate President Karen Spilka today. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. It is such an honor to be here. And on behalf of our fierce, fantastic Cape and Islands legislative delegation, Senator Moran, Representative Peake, Representative Diggs, Representative Zaros, Representative Fernandez, Representative Vieira, and Representative Whalen, who are not with us today, welcome to Cape Cod. Welcome, Madam Secretary, to Cape Cod, to Martha's Vineyard, to Nantucket. We are so proud to be the place in the United States that is hosting the first and, Governor and Mr. Speaker, the 5th, the 8th, the 10th offshore wind project here in Massachusetts. And that is something that I think all of us, if you make your life here on Cape Cod or Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket, you can't help but appreciate what a unique, special place this is, but how fragile this place is. And what we do today and what we do over the next 10 years is going to determine whether the people who come after us are going to be able to actually stand on this beach, right? Or if this beach is going to be gone, are going to be able to make a life here or not. And what is so fantastic about this project, right, is that it is the culmination of so much work in the legislature, in the government here in Massachusetts, working here in Massachusetts in a bipartisan fashion with the help, thank God, of a Democratic administration in the Biden administration to get this project done. This would not have been possible without fierce leadership in the legislature, and I bring greetings from Senate President Karen Spilka, who is a huge fan of offshore wind, who I was actually reminded when I was in the suite last night finishing up some business, has a figurine of a offshore windmill on her desk. It's not possible without the work. I see Senator Pacheco here, my colleague, my predecessors, and Senator O'Leary and Senator Wolf, and so many who made this legislation possible. The partnership we have with the town of Barnstable, who has been creative and tenacious in making sure that Cape Cod is the place where these cables land. I'm deeply grateful to Vineyard Wind, who didn't just capitalize on a good-sounding name, but has been invested in island and Cape Cod communities, particularly in Martha's Vineyard. The operation and maintenance facilities for Vineyard Wind 1 is going to be housed right in Vineyard Haven. That's going to be in a seasonal community like Martha's Vineyard, having 35, 40 year-round jobs, union jobs for the next several decades is absolutely huge. And we'd like to see, we hope that the projects that follow take Vineyard Wind's example and make sure that they're investing in all of our communities, particularly here on Cape Cod and in the islands. I'm so excited to see what is possible this session and the years ahead. We're grateful for the tremendous partnership from you, Governor, and your administration, Mr. Speaker, your partnership. And I just want to close and say how wonderful it is to have you, Madam Secretary, here in partnership with all of us. So this is a tremendous day, and I will just close and say, for Cape Codders and Islanders of my generation, I think I may be the youngest person on this stage. This is the sort of work, right? And I see folks in the audience, right? This is the kind of work that's going to enable us and our children and grandchildren to continue to live and steward in this most special place. And so we are so grateful to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And so there are so many of you today who are not up on stage with us, but have been so important to this project throughout. And I did want to recognize the Attorney General's office, who is here, who have been absolute partners in the procurement process and reviewing these contracts and in making sure we push forward this clean energy future here in the Commonwealth. So now it is my honor to turn to, and I didn't practice your last name, Matt. Levesque. Usually I do that since I have a challenging one, but Matt is serving as the Town Council President here in Barnstable and also as the Town of Barnstable Asset Management Committee member, the Zoning and Regulatory Committee, and serves as the Chairman of the Appointments Committee. And I will just say, none of this work on our clean energy gets done if we can't work on creative solutions at the local community level. So Matt, thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you. Thank you, Vineyard Wind. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you, Governor Baker. Thank you. Here we are. Yes, we took the jump. Barnstable took the jump. And we took the chance. And this is a very special day that draws a line in the sand, marking a new beginning, literally. You can borrow it. You can borrow it. No one knows who I am. So, when I first became a town councilor, this project was already in place. I walked into somebody else's workmanship, and that I'm very thankful for. The path was already being plowed, and by our staff, by our leadership. Council President Jessica Rapp-Garcetti, Council President Eric Steinhilber, Council President James Crocker, Council President Paul Hebert, Vice President Schnepp, Gordon Starr's here, Councilor Paul Nieri. It wasn't a very heavy, our council understood the need and understood the benefit of having this in Barnstable. That wasn't a very difficult lift. Of course, we had to, we have to address the concerns of our citizens. This is a beautiful beach. Maybe not so much right now. But it will be again, and we'll have a cable in the ground that will provide clean energy, and that will be groundbreaking. When I first started my research on Vineyard Wind, I found it ironic that their home office is in New Bedford, Massachusetts. New Bedford, Massachusetts has a very long history of being a leader in energy creation. New Bedford is known as the whaling city and was the center of the whaling industry for a better part of a century. becoming known as the city that lights the world because of how much whale oil and spermaceti candles were manufactured in the town. Shipmen from all over the world escaped from Portugal, Italy, Spain, escaped slaves that came to New Bedford from the Underground Railroad, Cape Verdeans, people of the islands of Portugal, one which is Madeira, which is my grandfather's birthplace. It's a very important place. Everybody's seen the movie Glory, Robert Gould Shaw. These legislatures, when they come out of the State House, they see the statue with the infantry, the 54th Regiment, and the 2nd All-African-American Regiment in the Union Army, and they see that, and that was recruited in New Bedford. Frederick Douglass, his 2 sons were in that regiment and volunteered right there, right off of William Street, I believe. Just as the whaling industry was collapsing, due to the blatant harvesting of the whales, the cost of it, the American Civil War, and the timing of Edwin Drake striking oil in the western Pennsylvania in 1859, it transitioned to oil, and a gentleman from just across the Acushnet River in Fairhaven named Henry Huddleston Rogers hazarded his life and took his life savings and founded a petroleum refinery right there in western Pennsylvania. And eventually he grew his business and partnered, and eventually was taken over by a gentleman named by J.D. Rockefeller. And Henry Huddleston Rogers became a board member of Standard Oil. And never forgot, if you ever go to Fairhaven, you never forget that he was from there, by all the beautiful architecture and the foundations that are still in place because of his existence. He was still considered to be one of the 25th richest people in the country, and right here in southeastern Massachusetts. But that form of energy was not found to be sustainable, and we need to do something different. We need to do something better. So here we are in a very similar, diverse community, and with our town leadership and a perfect storm of leadership, where we have town manager Mark Ells, who washed ashore, and Dan Santos, our DPW director, washed ashore, and our finance director Mark Milne washed ashore, and came together with our town leadership and said, they're going to do this. This is a good idea. This is going to benefit not only our town, but it's going to benefit the entire community. And you're not going to find, I will say, you're not going to find harder workers than southeastern Massachusetts to make these things happen. Lived my whole life here. I myself am I was born in New Bedford, Massachusetts. My father was, and my mom is from Fairhaven. And here I am in Barnstable, awash ashore, and being able to play a small part in what's happening here. We have a lot to be proud of, but we are behind. And here we stand on November 18th, 2021, capturing the wind, as those sailors did in those whaling ships. And as we take our step forward into making not only Barnstable, not only southeastern Massachusetts, but Massachusetts and the United States, a place that can be a city that lights the world. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. Thank you for the legislature. Thank you for President Biden and giving us the permit to make these things happen. We so appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I wanted to take a moment and recognize a few other folks in the crowd today. Our State Senator Mark Pacheco, who has been just a true advocate, not just for offshore wind, but for the full suite of solutions that we're going to need to get to net zero. And he's been pushing on the net zero pathway for a very long time, and a pleasure, as always, to work with you, Senator. We are also joined by members of our building trades, and we have the Southeast Mass Building Trades with us, Dave Arrojo, today in the crowd. Gerard Duhy of the Seafarers International Union, and the Vice President, thank you, and Bernard O'Donnell, the Vice President of the International Longshoremen's Association. And this really speaks to the importance of the jobs that are going to be created by this clean energy industry. And one of the reasons I think that offshore wind has generated so much support in Massachusetts and throughout the eastern seaboard is the tremendous job creation potential. And really thanks to the efforts of Frank Calhoun, who negotiated the first project labor agreement, really a historic moment for an offshore wind project in U.S. history. The Vineyard Wind project will create at least 500 union jobs, with a majority of those coming from southeastern Massachusetts, including ambitious hiring targets for women and minority candidates. So it is my pleasure to welcome Frank Calhoun to the stand.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, Governor, Mr. Speaker, Madam Secretary Haaland, Lars, the team from Vineyard Wind, and so many of you here. When we did the signing of the project labor agreement in July, I used an old line that my father always put on his invitations to his parties. He said, "There are no strangers here, just good friends you've not yet met." We really do have, there's been analogies about teamwork here. We've met a lot of good friends, made a lot of good partnerships, and we're looking forward to continuing those. And I have to echo the Secretary's comments. Dave Arujo was right at our side the whole time. He did yeoman's work. It's Thursday today, but I don't have to talk to Dave on Friday nights anymore. It seemed like it was every Friday night we were having conversations, sometimes Saturdays and Sundays. But I won't repeat a lot of what was said regarding the environmental benefits, just to say thank you, and I support all of that. And our 75,000 men and women who belong to Massachusetts Building Trades Union support that as well, because they want clean air, they want clean water, they want a clean environment for their families and their children, just like everybody else. But I'm here to talk about the jobs. It's been mentioned a number of times. And coincidentally, this happens to be National Apprenticeship Week. I got a little bit overshadowed by, we finally got Infrastructure Week. Thank you, President Biden, on Monday, after years of waiting. We have today, we're doing the groundbreaking. But Lars mentioned the opportunities for the young pile driver who's proud of this project and proud of his work on the marine terminal and is proud to be working soon on this project to tell his 5-year-old son, because that's what it's all about. It's not just jobs. I've been at this for an awful long time, and everybody talks about jobs. It's nice to have a president of the United States who talks about union jobs, because it's about the middle class, and he often says the middle class built this country, and unions built the middle class. And we do that through our apprenticeship programs. Just here in Massachusetts alone, we spend over $60 million. We're already bringing that to bear. I know Dave is working with Jen Cullen and others on the Vineyard Wind team to make sure that we have the workforce up and ready to go for this project and for subsequent projects. We're going to continue that training, and as Matt said, you know, it was Nantucket men and New Bedford men, but now it's men and women that lit the world, and we're always on every whaling ship around the world. We want to have Massachusetts men and women working on projects up and down the East Coast, because that is one of the benefits, although it took us a while, Governor, to get here. But although we do things a little bit more slowly sometimes in Massachusetts, when we do them right. We make sure the job is done properly. We make sure it's done safely. We make sure it's done efficiently, and we can make a few bucks at the end of the day as well, and put food on the table for our families and give them that ticket to the middle class that President Biden talks about. So thank you all for all of your efforts. There's too many people here to thank, as has been mentioned earlier, but we're really looking forward to getting to work and getting that shovel in the hands is the first instance, and putting people on those job sites, into the apprenticeship programs, and into the middle class. Thank you again.
And I know one of the groups who's pushing so hard on the job front as well is here today, our Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, who is dedicating significant dollars from the legislature towards environmental justice communities and building clean energy jobs with that opportunity. So So next up is Andy Gottlieb, who serves as the Executive Director of the Association to Preserve Cape Cod. As Executive Director, Andrew is responsible for determining the focus of your advocacy and educational efforts at APCC and implementing and coordinating fundraising and membership programs. And Andrew has significant experience, over 30 years of environmental protection experience, knowing how to balance the resource challenges we have going forward. So Andrew, thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. And there's a couple take-homes for this event from my perspective. Certainly as an environmental organization, of course we're happy and we can get on board and say, you know, we need the clean energy future. Leadership matters. We're fortunate to have Secretary Haaland. Your presence has mattered. It's made a difference. This governor, Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Secretary Theoharides, it matters who's in charge. Because with the legislature and the Speaker and Senate President, Massachusetts legislature and leadership has done the hard work to create the vision and opportunity. But the vision and opportunity is necessary, but it's not sufficient to actually implement and achieve the outcomes that are going to be necessary to change our future and provide affordable clean energy. That's where the project proponent comes in. And for us as an environmental organization, sure, you know, we can support and do support the high-level agreement on the goals and the objectives, but every project, especially when you're starting an industry, which is really what we're talking about here, you're replacing a dirty old industry with something that's going to replace it and improve it and be cleaner, but it doesn't come without impacts. And as anybody who's worked at the municipal level, as I know the governor, lieutenant governor, a number of you here have, you know, you talk about putting in an addition on your garage, it's hard to get it through local government.
Changing a window.
Maybe in Swampscott. But you know, when you're talking about a project of this scale and the ones that are going to follow it, they're going to have impacts. And what made it easy for us as an organization to be the first environmental organization to come out in support of this project wasn't that rhetorically we support it. It was because the project proponents, Vineyard Wind, confronted honestly and openly what the challenges were, what some of the management issues are, what some of the resource constraints and trade-offs were, and by talking about them and presenting the information in a way that was accessible, meaningful, and honest to the broader community, it let us understand what was going on, and what you understand and confront, you can manage and mitigate. And you can't start an industry unless you're serious about what it means. And you know, this project is exponentially to the good side. It's not without other impacts. But not doing anything is also a decision, and that's not without impacts, and they're clearly worse. You know, we needed to embrace this, and part of the challenge for the environmental world is to be able to engage on specific projects to get this done. It's not just good enough to be able to say at the high level, yeah, we support these projects. Oh, but this particular project, this particular location, that doesn't work. One of the things that I commend Vineyard Wind for doing is engaging in a meaningful, open way with the community. You were smart. You picked Nate Mayo to do it. And you know, and the reason that was smart was because we knew Nate. We knew we could talk to him. We knew he could bring things back, and it was very clear from the get-go that the messages that came back from the local communities were heard by Vineyard Wind. So what do we have? We have a project that changes our energy future as a nation and as a state, but in addition to it, we have a project that has facilitated the town of Barnstable's ability to move forward with our other huge challenge on Cape Cod, which is water quality. And at the same time, not just that, but by providing affordable, long-term renewable energy, it reduces the pressure on our residents who struggle for a myriad of reasons to make ends meet on Cape Cod. So the multiple benefits of investment of public and private dollars and effort for one outcome that supports multiple other outcomes that are important to the community, this is the way to do projects like this. And I hope that for the next ones you're going to do, and for some of your competitors who are trying to do what you've done, that they pay attention to the model that Vineyard Wind has brought. You know, as a selectman in an adjoining community, you know, I look at Barnstable, Matt and Mark, I look at what you've been able to obtain through this project, and this is the only time you might hear me say I'm a little jealous of Barnstable, but only for this. You did it in a way that, you know, benefited your community. And so, you know, we need, as advocates for the environment and advocates for our people and advocates for our municipalities, open our minds a little bit to engage when we have solid, good partners like Vineyard Wind, because we have the chance to solve problems that are otherwise not solvable. So congratulations, and thank you all for helping.
Thank you, Andy. Very well said. This focus on multi-benefits from projects like these is so important, and it is thanks to the creativity of many people, including our next speaker, Dennis Ariola, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Avangrid, which is a leading sustainable energy company with approximately $39 billion in assets and operations in 24 U.S. states. And Avangrid is a part of the Iberdrola Group and the parent company of Avangrid Renewables, which is one of the joint owners of Vineyard Wind. So thank you very much, Dennis, for being here today with us.
Thank you, Secretary, and thank you, everyone, for being here. Secretary, Lieutenant Governor, Governor, Speaker, everybody that's here, so many distinguished guests. Today truly is a historic day, not just for the United States and not just for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but also for the offshore wind industry here in North America. And for Avangrid, as the Secretary said, we're very proud to be a part of the solution for this region and for the country. You know, it's kind of ironic that on the heels of COP26 last week in Glasgow, and, you know, earlier this week I had the honor of being on the stage with the President and the Secretary here when the bipartisan infrastructure bill was signed. It was great to see that we're doing this today, that we're celebrating a truly historic event. And when you think about it, Vineyard Wind is an example of what can be done when people come together, they listen, they learn, they share, they collaborate. And so it's an example of what can be done. And Governor, as you said, what's got to be done faster? We've got to figure out how we take the learnings from this project, and not just here in Massachusetts, but up and down this coast, in the Gulf region, on the West Coast, and inland as well, because we need more clean energy. And for Avangrid, we believe that in order to build a sustainable, clean, and connected energy future, you've got to have a balanced approach. You've got to figure out how to create win-win-win situations with the communities that you're touching, with the labor that you're working with the jobs, the schools, the communities. And it can be a win-win-win situation if we learn to listen, if we learn to collaborate, if we learn to compromise. You've heard about the numbers. 400,000 homes and businesses that are going to be receiving this clean energy. 3,600 new jobs. You know, Massachusetts ratepayers are going to be receiving $1.4 billion in savings in the first 20 years of operation, and cutting carbon by 1.6 million metric tons. The numbers, you know, they sound big. They are big, and they can be bigger, and they need to be bigger with future projects. I do really want to thank President Biden, Secretary Haaland, and the entire team at BOEM. A lot of times this work gets done by people that don't see what's happening behind the scenes, and we know how difficult it was to get this across the finish line. There were people that didn't want not just this project, but this industry to succeed. And I think through the tenacious efforts and the persistence of the team, of the grand team, we're at the point where the shovels are going to go in the dirt. And I think that's a great situation. To Congressman Keating and the leaders in Congress, your support for offshore wind has been fantastic. We've already talked, Governor, about your pushing, your sense of urgency, your courage. with you and your team to have this be the first major project. And to the local community here in Barnstable and the local region, fantastic. Frank, I've had the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better, and I got to tell you, your leadership in helping drive the PLA is, I think, now a template that can be used, but that should be used in the future. And I'm hopeful that as we continue to grow our projects in the future, we'll be able to leverage off of that. For Avangrid, Vineyard Wind is just the start of this energy revolution. We've got some other projects, and Governor, I'm hopeful that we're going to be helping you satisfy your need for more energy. We've got a bid out there, and I know we can't talk about it, so we won't. But we've got projects that are going to be serving Connecticut, off of Virginia and North Carolina, and we're really excited about it. You know, 15 years ago, onshore wind was still a technology that people were questioning, and it was really in the infancy here in America. And today, that industry employs more than 120,000 people across the country in all 50 states, and it generates close to 10% of America's electric needs. As we stand here today and you look out to this beautiful ocean with this beautiful sun, this is where we're going to generate clean energy. And it's going to benefit individuals, it's going to benefit businesses, it's going to benefit communities, it's going to create jobs, and it's going to help our environment. And it's just so exciting to be here with all of you today, to be at the start, to be the pioneer. And with Thanksgiving just around the corner, I know that we all have a lot to be thankful for. And I want to tell you, I'm thankful for being a part of this team, a very small part of the team, because the people in the back and the people that aren't here are the ones that have done all the work. We're proud of you, Team Vineyard Wind. Thank you for what you do. Have a safe and restful holiday. Thank you.
So many people have sweated the details of this project, from getting it from inception to completion. And I think for a period there, Lars and I spent almost every Friday night on the phone with a group of folks that included Rachel Pachter and Christian Scorzoni, our DOER Commissioner Patrick Woodcock, and then our Undersecretary Judy Chang. So thanks to all of them for their work on this. Also, I believe we're joined today by our Deputy Director of BOEM, Walter Cruikshank, and I know he has worked on this project for a long time, making sure that it is set up right to be the sort of first in the, well, not sort of, but the first in the nation project of this scale and scope. Another person who has thought long and hard about this project and worked out all the details is Christian Skakbeck, who is a senior partner at Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners and a joint owner of the Vineyard Wind project. And we're just so grateful that we have this partnership with Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners to complete this project, and their vision and experience is so important to go forward here. So Christian, thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Thank you, Secretary Haaland. Thank you, Governor Baker. Thanks to all the representatives, to the partners, to all who have supported the project, to everybody who's shown up here today to celebrate with us. In CIP, we are extremely proud to be able to participate in delivering this first offshore wind project in the US, first large-scale offshore project. In CIP, our team, we have people that have been doing offshore wind in Europe for many years. Our oldest colleague even participated in the first offshore wind project back in 1991. But I think it's fair to say that when we entered the US offshore market in 2016, we didn't fully understand all the challenges we had in front of us. And I think that was probably a good thing. But what we did understand was that all the fundamentals were here in this area. Good wind speed, shallow water, close to low tenders. And today we are proud that our team was able to push through and able to enable the project to get permitted and get the financing. So also thanks to our partners at Avangrid and Ariola for good cooperation. There's been hours with some difficult decisions to make over the years. For those of you that do not know CRP so well, we are a global infrastructure investor fully committed to the green transition. We are investing on behalf of large institutional investors, including large offshore, large US pension funds, who are long-term participators in developing, constructing, and operating renewable assets. But our investors are not only looking for stable returns, they also want to enable a just transition, meaning commitment to developing good-paying local jobs. So therefore, we're also very happy that this project paved the way for the first US offshore wind PLA. At the moment, we are investing the largest dedicated renewable investment fund ever raised. The US is our biggest market. We do solar PV, we do onshore wind, but we also do projects that will facilitate more renewable energy in the US energy system. So a large-scale underground transmission grid enabling green power to travel cross-country from the MISO to the PGM electricity market, and pump storage hydro facilities in Pacific Northwest. But offshore wind has always been our largest focus area. And although Vineyard Wind has been challenging from time to time, we are sure that it will help open a new market for offshore wind here in the US. We are firm believers that not only the eastern seaboard, but also the west coast of the US has significant opportunities for expanding offshore wind. We are also encouraged by the fact that the push of the Biden administration to open more seabed leases will drive further supply chain expansion, more local job creation, and in return lower cost for offshore wind. All this combined with strong push from states as Massachusetts will make US one of the prime markets for offshore wind globally, and position offshore wind as one of the key solutions towards net zero in the coastal states. So we look forward, and we continue to expansion and continue to our expansion here in the US in the offshore wind market, and we will develop future projects in our 522 lease area, where we are targeting a 2.5 gigawatt project to be delivered into New York or to the New England grids. So thanks again. Thanks for coming and supporting the project.
So thanks to all the speakers for the kind and passionate words. I think you can clearly see that Massachusetts has a long history with offshore wind. There's a lot of great stories. Some were told here today, a lot were untold. Some of them maybe should remain untold. But nonetheless, it's been extremely great to feel the passion. It's been great to see everybody here. Once we conclude here, we will do a few photos with the official groundbreaking, inviting you out here, but we will also like to serve a light lunch, and we would hope you would stay and celebrate a little bit longer with us if you have the time. We couldn't even bring my whole team down here. They're a little bit heads down getting stuff done. A lot of them said, no, it's very, very busy time right now. We need to conclude all the contracts, but I still think I got roughly a third of them to travel with us. So if you have the time, we would love you to stay and celebrate a little bit longer with us. But otherwise, I would say thank you again, and thank you for coming, and we really look forward to the inauguration. Thank you.
Thank you.